Hello and welcome to the podcast, Mosaic Art Behind the Scenes. I am your host, Carlos Gonzalez, and this is our seventh episode with global mosaic credentials that go back all the way to 2003 in the mosaic art community. Born in Toronto, Canada, but she's currently creating mosaics in Austin, Texas, where she has been involved in the Texas Society of Sculptors and the Austin Mosaic Guild. She considers herself as a guide to inspire others to discover their inner knowledge through teaching, commissions, collaborative projects, and exhibitions. She's a faculty member at the Contemporary Austin Art School at Laguna Gloria, a past director at the School of Mosaic in Austin 2017 and 2019. And not only that, she is also a current instructor and gives classes at Mosaic Arts Online in case you ever want to have one. Her work has attracted international attention through numerous awards and conferences, including Best Architectural Mosaics at the 2010 Mosaic Arts International Exhibit in Chicago, Illinois, and her 2017 participation in the prestigious Clauiano Mosaic Symposium in Clauino, Italy, as one of 9 selected international artists. I am very happy to introduce to you an all-around fine art mosaic artist with indigenous roots, as she is a member of the Chippewas of Rama First Nation in Ontario, Canada, and also is a great friend from past Mosaic studio time with her. Her name is Diane Sonnenberg. How are you, Diane? How's it going?
I'm doing great, Carlos. Thanks for having me here tonight.
No, thank you. I love the glasses. People who are
Uh,
just listening, if you have to catch up to the YouTube channel because she's wearing these awesome red burgundy glasses like she's a movie star from Hollywood.
I just got these a few weeks ago. I couldn't resist. They're lots of fun.
Oh, they look fun. They look really good on you.
Thank you. I'll have to
So
update
tell me a little, huh?
my Facebook. I'll have to update my Facebook profile for the new picture.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I put those on. I put that on all your public art RFQs on your curriculum. So you've been doing mosaics for a long time. I met you in Austin when you were the director there, and with Kruger. She was
Mhm.
really fun to do mosaics with. I know there's a lot of things going on in Austin, a lot of mosaic art going on there, and you've been doing it for a little bit. So tell me a little bit about your experiences. I know you started in 2003, more or less, and how you got started into mosaics.
Mhm. Yeah, I did start in 2003. There were a few mosaics here in town, a few artists in town, and I became interested in mosaics in sort of a odd way. I used to work at Dell Computer in the tech industry here in Austin, and I left Dell to have my kids and be a stay-at-home mom. Then when I decided to go back to work when they were school age, I wanted to do pretty much anything except go back into the tech industry. So I was in an exploring mode. One morning I woke up thinking I want to learn how to make mosaics. And it was just totally out of the blue. So I decided to get some books, take a class, find out what it was all about, and it became my passion. I
Although
just
that happens to a lot of people, they find out a certain passion. Some are like for me, I learned of my passion like when I was younger, when I was like 20 something at least, when I started Mosaic School in Brazil. Thank God I knew at an early age what I wanted to do. I'm glad you had that in you that you wanted to take up making mosaics because I've seen your work and you do really really great work. I've ever since I met you, I've watched your some of your mandalas that you have made and your workshops that you were doing. And now you do a lot of public art, which is something interesting that we want to talk about in this episode, and what your experience is in public art and how that has changed from making art for just personal use or just to
Mhm.
sell, make it as an artist. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really quite different, actually. And I happened upon it somewhat by accident because I answered a call for artists who wanted to make 10-foot guitars for a charity auction project called Guitar Town. And so I submitted a design, and I was one of the artists that they picked. This was very early on in my career, after I'd been only making mosaics for a couple years. And I created this giant 10-foot gold mosaic guitar, and it sold at the charity auction for $55,000, which was the highest
Wow.
price anybody paid for anything at
Yeah.
that auction. So that
Wow.
really started things out, and
Yeah.
I got some
That's
commissions.
amazing. That's amazing that a mosaic could sell for that. I mean, that's when you know, like, mosaic artists can make a living doing mosaics, right?
Right, right, and I remember having the thought, it was a charity thing, and I thought, "Well, gosh, wouldn't it be great if somebody paid me that much money to make something?"
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple years later, I got, a major commission to, create 2, giant 6-foot eggs for a private client, and they paid me.
Wow, yeah, no, I mean, do you have
It got
pictures of that in your website of these eggs that you're talking about at the DianeSonnenberg.com webpage? Do you have that in your
I
webpage?
do. They're right on the front page, and then you can also go into the architectural section where you can find out even more about them.
Yeah, I would recommend checking out her website. She's been doing mosaics for a little bit. I mean, she is someone that is experienced. She knows what techniques to use when she needs to use them, and she now is in a different level because there, in when you're in mosaic artist, there are levels of like there's not the same where you just do like mosaics as a hobby, and you do just
Right.
some personal work, like you get off work or you have some free time to make them, and then it's not the same when you just also do some work just to get by, and it's kind of like your second job. But like when you're an artist like you, when you do it full time, which I'm guessing that's what's going on now that
Yeah.
you're doing with big level public art pieces. I think that's just extraordinary, and I think, are you doing any public art right now?
Yeah, I am. I just completed a piece, a few months ago, and I'm getting ready to start on a, sculptural art piece for the city of Austin. But last summer, I, worked on a, 3-panel mural for a hospital in Houston, Texas, for a, pediatric wing that they were opening up, a brand new wing. So, I was contacted by an art agent to, ask me if I wanted to apply for this, um, job,
Yeah,
and,
the commission.
they sent me architectural renderings, and, it's a whole different level when you start doing public art. There's a lot of moving parts, and, a lot of things you sort of have to,
What has been
yeah.
the most difficult part for you when you do a public art piece? Like
Um,
from your experience that you've had with these couple of pieces that you've done, what do you think for someone who wants to get into making public art? What do you think they should know before they start thinking about it?
well, it really is about juggling and keeping track of all the nuances of it. You have to submit designs ahead of time, architectural renderings. You might have to make some small sample pieces for the client so they know what to expect. It's a lot more pressure, and frankly, you have to sort of develop a thick skin and act like you know what you're doing, even if maybe you don't. In
With all
areas.
yeah, because I'm sure there's a lot of technical engineering,
Mhm.
also words that you gotta be like, "Oh, okay." Like, I mean, one thing's reading a blueprint on a certain area that you're gonna work on, but
Right.
talking about certain, like, weights on concrete and things like that, that's when kinda
Mhm.
starts getting a little bit more complicated. For people with experience, you need to know those things before you start thinking of public art, right? That's
Right,
what I'm
right.
yeah.
And, I'm not an engineer, so I don't know necessarily how much load a wall would bear, but I have to, make sure that we find an engineer, or the
Yeah.
client, has somebody who can make sure that the,
And that's the thing, you gotta learn how to,
Mhm.
not do everything yourself. That's like an artist, the mosaic artist, we normally do everything ourselves, so we gotta let go of things for other
Right.
people to start doing what they know what to do in order for us to have, like, a good public art project, right?
That's true. And I've learned so much from the Mosaic community and online groups. Now there are Facebook groups for just about anything. So, I've got wonderful Mosaic communities there, tile setting communities where I can, go to and get information when I just haven't had experience with something yet. And that's really how you learn. I just sort of jumped into it with both feet and
Yeah.
learned as I went and trusted that I could figure it out when I didn't know the answers. And
Well,
it's
yeah. That's good. I mean, I'm glad you did it because I'm sure there's these pieces that are exceptional, and if you're in Houston, I would just go to the hospital just to check it out.
yeah, I've got some photos on my Instagram. I haven't put photos of that yet on my website, but it was a very ambitious project. I only had about 3 months to produce it with the deadline of the hospital opening. They're not going to wait for the art
Yeah.
to open the hospital wing. So it had to be there and installed before the opening date. So I had to hire a lot of other mosaic artists and assistants and farm some work out in order to actually meet the deadline. And I learned a lot during that process. It was.
And the theme is a ocean theme mosaic, more or less, or because it
Mhm.
has sea turtles, it has different corals. I'm looking at it right now because I'm fast. I'm fast. I look at the Instagram, and you can check her out at DS Mosaics. And that's her Instagram. So check her out there. And it looks beautiful. Like just like she said, she has 3 panels, and she's definitely learned how to work the values and the saturation on some tones. And I see they use the smalty. Is that the material that you like to
Mhm.
use, or do you like to use Venetian glass?
I love working with Smalty. It's one of my favorite materials, and that was pretty much what I knew I wanted to propose to the client with this one. But I also combined materials on this project. I used fused glass from a fused
Oh,
glass kiln studio because some
yeah.
of the fish in the coral reef, they're very detailed and they have a lot of color and fine lines. And I wanted to be able to portray that. So by doing that in fused glass, we could get a lot more detail for the tiny little fish. And then for the water, I used handmade glazed tiles from Montreal Tile Lab in Canada.
Oh, okay. Is that the Mosaica lab?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ricardo Ruiz Ruz worked with Mosaic, and now he has his own
Oh,
tile
okay.
factory.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, they make their own tile, and I've always thought I didn't know if they sell the material or not. I just knew they make a lot of.
Mhm.
They're very well known for making public art. I like the. I'm looking at. I'm still looking at your Instagram. I'm looking at the fish that you're talking about with the fused glass. I mean, you could definitely see them sticking out. They're these yellow, bright
Mhm.
color with some red, orange. I don't know. They're just really fun. I'm glad it's in a hospital. I'm sure a lot of it'll keep uh a lot of good thoughts in that hospital after when someone's sick. This is something definitely
Yeah.
great to see when you're walking by it. I'm very glad. I'm very happy that you had that opportunity to make that. Which
Oh,
that's what we're here for, right? Make cool art.
yeah. Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I, spent my entire summer 7 days a week working on this because, it's for a, pediatric waiting room, so people are there, they're waiting for their children to come out of surgery,
Yeah, I
or
know.
their siblings or, whomever, and they've got something that might be a distraction. It's beautiful, it's colorful, it's interesting, and we're also, going to write a book about the mural, how
The
it's
process.
made. Yeah, the process, a little bit about coral reefs, and
Yeah.
make it something interesting that we can set down in the waiting room for them to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. I think a mosaic artist can do a lot of things, just like this podcast. This podcast, whether it's writing a book, or just trying to talk to artists and what they do and their experiences. I had a person that works for Duke Hospital. She took a workshop not too long ago, and she works in the area where they do heart transplants, and she works with kids. And I told her I would go over there and I would try to work with the kids to make some mosaics, but with like paper so they wouldn't cut themselves. So I want to go over there and I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to go and I'm going to help out as a not I mean I'm not going to get paid for it, but I definitely want to go over there and just have some kids smile and just play with colors and little. I'm going to cut little squares of papers and just make sure they mosaic the whole area where they are so so they can tell them to stop playing around. you know.
Oh, that sounds great. And
Yeah.
the process, as we all know, as mosaic artists, is very therapeutic and
Oh
satisfying.
yeah.
So, working within a
Well, now it
hospital.
is, yeah. I mean, now there's an actual therapy that you can use while making mosaics. Like when I went to school, I mean, I didn't even hear about that. I mean, I just thought, you just like having fun, and you got in the zone, and you started making mosaics. And for me, it's more like a mind game. I lose myself when I make mosaics. I don't know about you. I don't know
Yeah. Oh,
if you lose yourself like I do.
yeah, I definitely do. And for me, that's the real enjoyment about what I create. Making it into something, and the fact that I have something to show for it afterwards is just an added bonus.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, and you leave a legacy too. You leave something behind, which that's also really nice. Like when you make a mosaic, I did a mural in 2020 when the pandemic just hit, and it's there right now. And every time it's about like 256 piece of hearts here in the city of where I live, and
Uh,
it's very nice to walk by and be like, hey, unless that building falls apart or something, hopefully that will be there for a long time. So I
yeah.
understand the aspect of just leaving stuff and having kind of like a signature and someone just getting reminded of who did that. Oh, hey, well, at least, he did
Mhm.
some good stuff for the community, and I'm sure that's what you're doing. Do you only work in Austin? Because I mean, Houston, that's one of them, but do you mostly get work from Austin, or do you try to get calls from the whole state or out of state by any chance? Because sometimes there are calls out of state also, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I work primarily in Austin and the surrounding Texas area, but I have worked in other states, and also I've done some projects in Ontario, where I'm from, Canada.
Okay, so you go back and forth. Do you have a house in Ontario also? Do
I
you have a studio? I mean, yeah.
I don't. My aunt is an artist, and so I quite often will stay at her place and set up a little mini temporary studio out back.
Oh, okay.
Summers in Ontario are very nice compared with summers in Austin, which are just hot.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The reason between Austin and North Carolina, where I live now, because I was looking for a school for my son, which is a Waldorf school, and there's a Waldorf school in Austin, was
yes.
the weather. The reason I chose North Carolina was the weather, but tomorrow is supposed to be a winter storm. But I'm from Minnesota, so I don't mind small winter storms.
A little bit here and there, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Austin where it just freezes like for a couple of days. Like there's just like this little freeze on the floor, right?
Yeah, yep, and then it's finished.
And then it's finished. But then you still see the deer run around like right after
Yeah,
that.
that's true.
um, Talking about mosaics, is there anything else that you do besides mosaics? Do you work? Some people work with ceramics. Some other people do painting also. Do you do any of those things, or do you just mostly maintain the medium of mosaics in your
Well,
profession?
mosaic is my primary medium, but I do a lot of sculptural forms. And sometimes I'll do sculpture without adding mosaic, but primarily I do sculptural work as a means to create a substrate for mosaic. I'm doing a public art project coming up this year for the city of Austin, where I'll be making a grouping of sculptural forms covered in mosaic. And then I
Wow.
also do a bit of fused glass work.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're liking the part of the fused glass also.
Mhm.
mixing it with the mixed media, the mosaics. What people who don't really know about making mosaics on top of sculptures, what kind of base do you use? I know some people use styrofoam and then they put the mesh and they put it like a thin set and then they kind of mold that that layer to whatever shape they want to do.
Mhm.
Um, it and then some people just actually make that structure and then just kind of layer it with the the beams or whatever, and then they put the cement over it and then just kind of have it more. I guess that's just
Mhm.
there's different ways of working that specific style. What do you use?
Well, I use both of those methods. When I was first starting out, I just tried to muddle through and figure it out. Doing a form of ferro cement where you build a metal structure and then cover it with cement and or mesh to create the form. This summer, though, went to Bell Buckle, Tennessee, and studied with Sherry Warner Hunter and learned her process for working with styrofoam under
Yeah.
concrete. And it really solidified my knowledge, I think, in how to do sculptural bases the right way.
Yeah, you can get these really big cubes of styrofoam. That's a cool
Yeah.
thing. And you know what? It's gonna be funny. You're gonna laugh about this because it's really funny. In Mexico, when I used to work over there, I used to work for Colorine. So in Mexico, people who install and people who make the hard work, right? Because I mean, when we talk about like mosaic studios, there's like 30 people working in the mosaic studio, and most of these people it's like a 8 to 4 o'clock job for them. They're not artists who really they're just it's a job and they have a artistic sense of what they need to do. So what I'm getting at is they had this thing that they had to make with sculpture, and then they had the styrofoam and they were trying to figure out how are they because they were taking so long on trying to cut it right like on the edges and trying to
Mhm.
mold it. So they grabbed a battery from a car, right? And they've made like this wiring so they could just one guy with the other guy would hold the wire, right? And then
Yeah.
and they would just move the wire around to mold the piece that they wanted to cut. But it cut really nice. Actually, when I saw it, it was like, okay, you guys are gonna get hurt if you guys, kind of touch up the wrong part of the battery. But they
Yeah.
were going pretty fast to what normally you would use, like with the small, you've seen those, like with heat and it heats up, and then you kind of slice through like knife with butter. But I would
Yeah.
not recommend it using a battery and just putting up some wires, you know? And
Yeah,
they just laughed at it. They're like, "Hey, it's working." I'm like, "Okay, if it's working for you
that'll
guys,
be
you go ahead.
fine.
You'll be fine. I'm glad you're not working for me, you know?"
Yeah, yeah, I tend to, sort of figure things out as I go, but I try to, maintain my personal safety whenever I can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean,
there are
I
tools you
would.
can buy.
Yeah, I suppose, but they're just, they're installers and they're just rough people over there. Yeah, they work
Mhm.
under like these heat, just doing pool coverings like all the time, and they just kind of, I think it was like
Yeah,
one of the things that they weren't really used to doing something like that. So, but they figured out a way though. Most people do try to figure out what's a good way and a fast way to get things done over there.
right, right.
So do you teach classes by any chance? Do you teach? I know in CMA, which is a website, a community website, and there's a lot of artists there. And I know some people teach. I think I might have seen a workshop coming up with your class. Is that
Yeah.
true?
It is true. I'm teaching a introduction to Smulty for CMA to art.com. And it's
Yeah.
coming up in early March. So it'll be an online course. So anybody who's interested can sign up for it no matter where they are. And we'll be doing it live via Zoom over a 2-day weekend. So I'm excited about that. Since the pandemic, I've been doing more online classes, and once I figured out how it worked, it actually is a pretty good way to teach and take a class. I've taken lots of classes online as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that helps a lot, especially with the pandemic. It's brought out like all these technical stuff. I mean, I've never used any audio and just things to make podcasts or like this video even that we're going to make right now for this episode. And it's just they bring it brings out a lot of cool stuff that people can do. And I would recommend if you don't know anything about Smalty or even know what it is, because there's a difference in Smalties. I mean, there's a Smalty from Mexico, there's a Smalty from Italy.
Hmm.
There's matte ceramic type of Smalty that they might try to sell it to you like Smalty, but it's not. It just kind of depends though. And there's a cutting Smalty. The shape of the Smalty is different too. So I'm guessing all those things are things that you're going to talk about in that workshop.
Hmm.
So if you're interested, I would recommend get on the cma2art.com webpage and look up her workshop, and she's a fun person. I mean, I just know you're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm glad you're doing this podcast so we can talk about that.
Oh yeah, yeah, thanks. We usually do have fun in the classes. And I've set this class up to give people a chance to learn traditional methods as well as some contemporary methods as well, so they really get a good sense of how to work with the material. Because, it's an expensive material, and if you haven't worked with it before, you don't want to waste it.
Oh yes, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, learning the basics, has proven to be pretty popular. I've taught this class quite a bit.
When they told me when I was making mosaics, when I learned how to make them in school, they're like 20% is your waste of material for any project, right?
Mhm.
Um, in general, that's kind of like the basic bit. If you learn to cut that down, I mean, if you have a big project, so imagine if you're cutting, and you're doing really good cutting, and you have like 5%, you're saving a lot of money on just the material
Mhm.
part that you could be using for something else, right? For like
Right.
a good vacation to Italy to learn more mosaics.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
and I'll take
So take the
advantage of
class.
that if I can.
Are you gonna show some of that Hammer and Hardy things on with the
Mhm.
workshop too? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I demo the hammer and hardy and, mention to people ahead of time if they want to, work with hammer and hardy, where to buy one and, you know,
Yeah. Exactly.
how to get set up at home. And then they
And
can also use their nippers because not everybody's,
yeah,
got.
not everybody has. I mean, they're expensive hammers, and there's
Mhm,
some tungsten carbides or stainless steel. There's a lot of tools, and people who are starting to make mosaics. I would recommend just to get into a mosaic community in your town or your city or your nearby, and then just kind of get an idea of all the things that you could use. Some are nippers, some are the mosaic hammers, but
mhm,
there's experienced people that will tell you for these workshops, and some workshops aren't that expensive. Um, I mean, it's worth it because just one tool will cost that workshop, so you can have an idea of what to buy, especially with someone that has been doing it for so long, and that's something like Diane. Talking about the public art again, what would you recommend? I mean, what do you think? I mean, I know you have to do an interest letter, right? Most of the time.
mm,
How would you create the interest letter? What do you might put on there? Like, I know there's a certain structure that you have to do, but like an artist too, best pictures, you have to have your work, your past work, you have to show it. So what you have to have a good quality picture to show that in the same
mhm.
format. Anything that would help for people who are listening and that you've already made public art and that's the field that you're getting into, and it seems like every day you're getting more into that. What would you recommend to people who want to do this and just don't know a little bit or are starting to know a little bit about it?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Carlos, because, a lot of people do ask that, and the first thing I recommend is create as much, art as you can so that you have a portfolio, and then get some very good photographs of that. If you can't, do, professional looking photographs yourself, hire someone. Photographers aren't so expensive that you can't, afford to bring somebody out and get some good quality photos of your work. And then when you're applying for a public art project, usually there's a request for qualifications or a request for proposals. And they'll outline exactly what they expect of you. They want you to maybe give a description of the kind of work that you would envision creating, or a list of projects that you've done before. They want to know that you can do the work successfully. And that basically involves having a track record. I started out doing these charity public art pieces, like the big guitar I spoke about,
Yeah, wow.
and
Yeah.
a couple cows, a cow and a longhorn.
Nice. Hey,
Then,
you are in Texas, right?
yeah, some private projects like oceanography. My 6-foot eggs were a private commission, and I've done some architectural pieces in people's swimming pools, and a big mosaic sofa in a um, ecological house. So having things like that to show tells a potential client that you're capable.
Oh yeah, and documenting your stuff. You know what? I'm taking actually a workshop here from there's it's called a non-profit organization called Triangle Works, and I'm taking this workshop that I was selected between I think 50. We were selected. I don't know, maybe like 20 artists,
Mhm.
local artists, and we're taking this workshop, and they're explaining to us because I did a public art in 2020, so once you start finding out a little bit about what it is, there's a lot of stuff that you need to know. So even like the references, right? Like the last class I
Mhm.
had, it was my first class was actually this Wednesday. They're talking about references and just try not to put a period, but someone that might um, know the work that you're doing, and they've been doing it for a long time, so they can identify the type of art that they
Mhm.
want to do in their project, and also not have them all the same. If it's like three references, maybe have like the third one be someone in Congress or someone that that might be in government, even in like a
Mhm.
commissioner, art director, or something like that for the county. Maybe put someone like that, and I think that's also very helpful for
Mhm.
people who want to. But yeah, I wouldn't just jump in because there's definitely a lot of stuff. Like if you don't have that much experience in making mosaics, and I would really recommend just first get a lot of information about it, or contact someone like Diane, or and
Mhm.
anyone that like me or in the community that kind of gets an idea of what you need to do, and we're always definitely out to help. I mean, mosaic artists are always helpful, I think. Don't you think? We're
Yeah, I
always there to
do.
help.
I
Yeah.
do. We're an exceptionally helpful group of people. I've always found mosaic artists are very giving and generous with their information. One of the ways a lot of people around here have gotten started were by assisting me with my projects, learning how the process works, and seeing it from start to finish, from the drawings to the installation, and that's a really good way to learn about the process. There's some good Facebook groups out there as well where you can see what other people are doing and ask them questions about the
Yeah.
details.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And a lot more people are getting to learn a little bit more about public art. So I'm sure there's a lot more people that you can get help out there if you wanted to. Right now I'm looking at the actual screen, and I see these after talking about all these eggs, right, for a while, like the eggs that she made with mirrors. In the back of her image, there's this portrait, or there's this painting or picture of the two eggs that she's talking about. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
actually pointing at him right now. But look at the YouTube channel if you want to look and see what she was talking about, the giant eggs. Look at the YouTube video. Definitely see some mosaic artwork in the background. She has some Roman mosaics, some small T mosaics, and then she has her piece. So they're huge. I mean, you don't really sometimes it's kind of like a number, right? You can say $5 million and it doesn't sound like
Mhm.
anything, but if you lay them out on the floor, or you start counting them
Right.
one by one, and you're like, yeah, that's a lot of money, you know?
Right, right, that's true. That's true. Yeah, the eggs are 6 feet tall, 5 feet wide. They're enormous, and they are the opening page on my website too, so you can go there and take a look
And
at the
check them out.
photos. Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy that you decided to do this podcast with me. I hope this isn't the only one. I hope you can keep coming back and showing me, um, maybe next time, just pictures, or you'll have them uploaded on your website of your new public art projects. And definitely keep in
Mhm.
touch. And you're always more than welcome here in North Carolina. I will be here for a while. Here's where I touch
Thank you.
space, and I think there's a lot of cool things going on over here. The cities are growing. Raleigh, Durham. They're big cities. Big companies are coming over here, so there's a lot of growth. I mean, sometimes I don't know if it's good or not. Some people don't want growth
True.
just because at least for artists, if there's more construction, there's always definitely more places for people to put art, and you're always welcome. So please come by if you're around. Come by the studio. My
I
studio. I'll
will.
invite you some coffee.
That sounds great. I love coffee.
You like coffee? Yeah, you like me then. All right. Oh, some Italian coffee. That way.
Right,
Yeah,
espresso.
yeah, exactly. That's what we need, right? When we do mosaics. Oh
Absolutely
man, this has been
right.
so fun. I'm so glad we did this, and
Yeah.
I just, like I said, you could check her out in her webpage, and she has all this information in CMA, DianeSonnenberg.com, and her Instagram at DC Mosaics. Just a lot of cool stuff. A lot of cool stuff. She's a really great person. You could just even hear her voice, how nice of a person she is, and most mosaic artists are like that. So, thank you. Appreciate you being in this podcast, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, Carlos. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, have a good one. I'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye-bye.